This episode is brought to you by National Geographic, presenting its new documentary film, Endurance. Follow the greatest survival story ever told, unpacking the legendary feat of polar explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton, who kept his crew alive for over a year, despite losing their ship in frigid pack ice. Over a century later, a team of modern-day explorers set out to find the sunken ship. Endurance, now streaming on Hulu and Disney+.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Fever, cough, congestion. When the symptoms keep coming, but you've got to keep going, you can rely on Mucinex Fast Max All-in-One. Just one dose of Mucinex Fast Max All-in-One relieves up to 9 cold and flu symptoms, helping you get on with your day. Need cold and flu relief? Get Mucinex Fast Max All-in-One and Done Relief. It's comeback season. Use as directed.
Hi everybody, I am Eric J. Brown, and I am here with my wonderful co-host. Alyssa, say hello.
Hello.
So we're supposed to be fast because we talked a long time with Josh Silver. Josh is here to talk about his book HappyHead, and it has been out in the UK for 2 years, and it has nominated for the Yodo Carnegie Medal for writing, and it's going into production with Taron Egerton's production company. We just started talking about mental health, and it became a great therapy session.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. I love when our conversations about books kind of like roll into other parts of life, and like feel like that's what makes books special. Josh is awesome, and you guys are going to love this episode, and I think you're all going to love his book if you haven't read it already.
Yes. So let's just get it started because it's a longer episode.
It's a longer one.
5 long years, our lives like magnetic fields. You are my universe. You are my universe, and I'm just a planet.
Hi, Josh. It's wonderful to see you again. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? It's nice to see you too.
I'm wonderful. It's been great.
Josh, your accent is really doing the thing. It's really doing the thing for the American girl in the chat right now.
How is it pronounced? Is it Mancunian?
Mancunian,
the Manchester accent?
Or you can say Mank.
Mank.
Yeah.
The Manccent. Can you say that?
The Manccent.
Did I just make that up?
Say mint. 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 And the word mint is very Mancunian. So that means like good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So these I'll teach you some of the Mankisms if you want. I mean, I don't have to. You might not want to.
Absolutely. So Josh and I did an event at Queerlit in Manchester when I was there. And I fell in love with Manchester. Like, I went there and it's like, it's just like one of those things where, have you ever been to a different city that you have never been in before, but like it kind of immediately feels like home?
Mm-hmm.
It was like that. And I was walking around and I was like, this kind of reminds me of Philly. But then as I was walking around to bookstores doing signings, I was like, no, this is different. It's its own thing. It just feels like Philly because it feels like home to me.
We filmed The Circle in Manchester.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't remember exactly like where it would be.
City.
Sorry?
Was it in Salford at Media City?
I think we were maybe not far from Media City, but I don't think we were in Media City because the whole building that we filmed The Circle in is just an apartment building. And it's like kind of, I'm trying to think of like landmarks that I could remember of like where exactly it was, but I don't think it was that close to Media City. I think we were kind of like outside of the like more concentrated area. It was really weird. But the building has a huge lit up circle on it.
Is it still there, the circle?
They just moved it last year to film it in Austin in the US. But they flew us all out to Manchester for when we filmed.
Because the BBC moved up to Salford, which is where I was born and raised. No, that's a complete lie. I was not born there.
You don't have to lie to us. It's okay. You can be honest. Where were you born?
I I was born in Southampton, which is on the south coast, and then I moved to the Lake District. And then when I was a young teenager, we moved to Manchester, and I lived there, and I was raised in Salford there. And it was like not a nice, well, it wasn't deemed a very nice area. And this whole BBC moved up into Salford, and it just like sort of gentrified it massively, and now it's like this very different place with
interesting
a different energy of like people going to work on TV shows and radio shows, and yeah, it's cool.
It's cool.
So was it like BBC was in London and then they were like, oh, we're going to move up here?
Yeah.
And like they just moved everything?
I don't know if they moved all of it, but they've definitely got a whole like studios, and they film a lot of stuff up here. Yeah, it's been a big change to the area.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's cool.
So what is some Manchester slang then that you can teach us other than mint?
You say pecking head?
No, what the heck is that?
So if someone is annoying you,
they're pecking your head, like
they're pecking your head. So you say he's pecking head.
Okay, I like that. I'll always favor taking the piss. I think that's like the funniest, most offensive way to say that you're like fucking with me. I just think that's so funny. I love it.
But then it's like they also say, "Oh, he's pissed," like he's drunk.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of pissing that isn't pissing.
Yeah,
do you actually say piss like pee?
You say, yeah, we do say that, but you say piss like I'm pissed, like I'm angry. We don't say that.
Oh.
Pissed would, if someone said I'm pissed, it means they're drunk.
So if you're like at a work meeting, you're like, oh, I'm just pissed right now. Everyone's like, you showed up to work drunk. It is 9 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. That would happen. But yeah, top, you'd say top. I think that's quite an old one. Top means like, great. It's pretty basic, simple.
Do you want to know? I got an email recently from a clothing brand, and it's called Minga, M-I-N-G-A.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because that's like a really offensive by the face you just made. That's a really offensive like British slang situation.
I've never heard that.
It's
word.
Called Minga London too. So I'm like, girl, that's
Minga
crazy.
Means like, in the derogatory sense, it means like, well, I guess it means ugly, doesn't it? Like that's what it means. And yeah, I mean, I think when I was at school, that was thrown around a lot. Like, hey, he's a Minga. She's a Minga. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm gonna make a clothing brand called Slag. Slag. It's just gonna be slutty clothes.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
I'm sure that would do really well.
Low key, I would absolutely. I mean, I got stuff from Minga. I got stuff from them. I was like, and I love it. Thank you so much. This is my address. So I'm sure I would love Slag too.
We're now sponsored by Minga.
Why not?
Oh my God. I love it.
All right. Now let's talk about books. Josh, can you tell us so I was so excited because I got to read HappyHead. It came out 2 years ago, right? In the UK.
Yeah.
It is only just now, like as of 2 days ago, coming out in the US.
Yeah.
So can you pitch it to us? Tell us, our listeners, what HappyHead is about.
I would love to. So HappyHead is a YA dystopian thriller, which follows the story of Seb, who is a 17-year-old who struggles with his mental health. He's high anxiety, low mood, he struggles with a sense of self, and socially awkward, isolates himself, and his parents don't know what to do with him. They then get this letter through the post, which is saying that Seb has been selected as part of 100 17-year-olds to trial this new project that the government have created in order to tackle this unhappiness epidemic that is sort of plaguing the teens of the UK, and he's a massive people pleaser. So he's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And I want to do really well. I want to prove to my family and my parents that I can be happy and be what they want. And he goes, and it immediately feels quite strange to him, but he sort of overlooks the red flags to just try and do what the system's asking of him. But as it's a 13-day project in the Scottish wilderness, and they have to undertake these trials and assessments in order to try and strengthen their personalities, really, and try and make them resilient, strong, independent people in order to make them happy. But what Seb starts to realize is that something strange is going on, and he meets someone called Finn, and Finn is deemed like rebellious and resistant, and actually what Finn is doing is sort of being himself in face of a system that's asking him to change. And ultimately, during the program, they're asked to couple up. And that one of the key features of what they think happiness is that you should be in a stable partnership. And the project is coming from a very heteronormative ideal. And so it's sort of like taking it back to traditional ideals. Seb is gay, and so he's still conflicted with how he can express that. So he just sort of runs with it and gets paired with this girl, Eleanor, and he's sort of denying who he is in order to please the system. So I guess the book is about whether Seb chooses or decides that pleasing the system will make him happy, or being who he is will make him happy. And and then, bad things start to happen, and they realize there's no escape, and there might be another stage, and they're actually competing for something. And that's kind of it. Is that good enough?
Yeah, I think that's great.
It almost reminds me a little bit of Squid Games, where like you go in and you go with like one sort of intention, and it kind of feels like a mix between Squid Games, except there's no at least with Squid Games there's like a huge prize. So
in this one, the only prize is happiness.
Almost a prize, but it's
an elusive prize. And then I don't know if have you ever heard of they have camps like kind of similar to that in the US where like I remember this was a huge thing about like Paris Hilton, like one of her parents had like taken her and had her kind of thrown in one of those camps. So was that a big part of building this story, was an awareness of those camps?
Honestly, I'd heard of these camps, and also I'd heard of like, conversion therapy. So I just will say that the book is not about conversion therapy, but those kind of camps where it's like, I think that the Paris Hilton style, I watched a documentary on Netflix about it fairly recently, actually, but it's like behavioral.
Yeah.
And typically I think sometimes they're linked to a religion, and sometimes they're not. It's just like, your kid is crazy, send them here, and we will like beat the bad out of them.
Right.
I think sitting here, the three of us can probably logically understand how damaging that can be for people. But if you're a scared parent who has grown up in a particularly narrow-minded world, or has quite a narrow-minded point of view, you might still be a very loving person who just wants your child to be okay. This is like an option, right? Like they're saying, we're going to save your kid from themselves.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I've read about my book, which is I have, and I'm not going to lie about that, is typically from like an older generation, they'll say, why are the parents sending the kids there? Like, they would never do it. But what I think is that when parents get desperate enough, we're supposed to trust our systems, right? And I think you could probably relate that in America, people do send their kids to places like this, and in the UK as well. So there was that style of program that I knew was happening anyway. So for me, that was very believable. And I've worked as a mental health nurse for 6 years now, and when I started training, that's when I started writing these books. But I would meet these parents who were, understandably desperate for their kids to be okay, and like a loss of how to help them. And it's almost like, please take them from us, because we don't know anymore. We've tried everything, and there's an element of that to HappyHead. And I think that faith that we place in systems, I've tried to explore that in the book by saying sometimes when we're in that place of desperation, we'll just do it. But the Paris Hilton stuff, I mean, I don't know I think it is slightly more American, those camps. I don't mean to generalize, but I do feel like the documentaries or the stuff that I've seen about them, they're very hardcore. The one I watched, the documentary in America.
Yeah.
Like, kind of
They seem like they are. I haven't seen the Paris Hilton documentary yet. I just remember like when it was coming out, there's so much press around it. And I know that it's interesting because it Paris Hilton went, and there are ones where like very sort of like, I don't want to say like upper class financially, those families are able to afford, but there are ones for even like middle class family. I'm sure they're extremely expensive no matter what. Yeah. But there's like a range of these sort of like behavioral adjustment type camps. But it's interesting because like, I think I'm not a parent and I can't imagine what that experience is like, but I can kind of guess how like to push yourself to a point where you're like, I'm going to go and trust this facility to just like behaviorally like change and adjust everything about my child because I literally can't do it. You already have to be like really at your limit and really like, I don't know what else to do.
Absolutely. And I think it's really easy for us to blame the parents and be like, you're disgusting. How could you send your kid there? But like,
right.
I think through growing up and learning that like most of these parents love their kids and you're not intentionally sending their kid to be hurt. They think it's going to help. And there's a lot of nuance in this, right? In terms of it's very easy to paint the parents as the bad guys, but actually the system, the camp is, I would ask, who's running that? Who's making money out of this? And why are they making money out of this? And, you know, I get angry about this because with the NHS as well, which is the British healthcare system. I won't get too political. I was at a school the other day and the head teacher was like, before you speak to the kids, do not get political. I was like, it is really hard because my book is political.
I feel like
I will.
If somebody told me that, I'd be like, why'd you bring me here?
Right.
Yeah. Because mental health is political, being gay is political. It's really hard for me to like not have a point of view on that, but I can keep political parties, you know, out of the discussion. But with the NHS, it's like the government that we were under until fairly recently were squeezing the NHS because they wanted to privatize the NHS in order to make money. And I was working in the middle of this system. So the care that was being given to teenagers with struggling with their mental health was becoming more and more strained. And you couldn't, being part of it, you couldn't help but feel like this was an active choice in order to break the system so they could say, now we privatize it and people have to get insurance and pay for their care. And that costs lives. It costs lives. And you can't help but feel very, very angry. And in the same way, with like these camps or HappyHead, it's like it's exploiting vulnerable parents as well as vulnerable teenagers. You know, it's like, it's offering a solution when really they just want money. And that's disgusting.
It's hard when you're like, I see this, my like job outside of doing this amazing podcast that I love so much is I'm a sex coach and a sex and relationship coach and a sex educator. And so like in that space, I see it too, where there are people who chose to be a coach versus a therapist, like so that they would have whatever different guardrails basically, but then they'll charge $4,000 a month for their services. And I'm like, so did you get into this to help people or what are you doing? And I feel like it's like that with mental health too, where when you're working in an industry that is so badly needed, it is so easy for the people who are providing the service to be like, well, I know that you really badly need it, so I'm going to jack up the price. And it's like, but that's not why get into that industry? It's so vulnerable and people take advantage in those spaces so often. It makes me so angry.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a fine balance because obviously people who are doing a profession offering a service need to pay their own way. And how do you, as a human being who's in that position? So for you, for example, you're like, I don't want to hike up my prices so that people have to remortgage their house to pay for my service. So I need to live. So it's like a balance, isn't it? My therapist did this thing when I first met them, he said, there was no price on the website. And I was like, how much are you? And he was like, he sent me this form and it basically talked through, I had to answer these questions for myself. And it was about my income, people that rely on me, my rent, and then it came to like this decision how much I should pay. And then he decided whether he was like, great. And that was the price. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of amazing because I hadn't like, try to alter it in order to like, and I just thought that was a very interesting way of doing it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh my God.
That's I do think a lot more stuff like that should be on a sliding scale,
100%.
like especially for like if you need mental health care, or I don't want to say health care because everybody needs normal like bodily health care, but like mental health care, I think is one of the most neglected because people just think that it's all in their heads and they can just work past it. And sometimes that's not possible. Like, yeah, sometimes just talking to somebody and getting coping mechanisms is good and that helps. But then there's other people who genuinely need like medication or constant, like, just one-on-one therapy time. And it's so hard to get that and be able to afford it. And I do wish that more people had like sliding scales. That was what I looked for when I looked for a therapist. It was just, do you have a sliding scale? Because some years I may not make any money.
Yeah.
Who knows? I could publish my fourth book and never be seen from or heard from again. So it's like,
and that's
I can't just stop seeing you because I can't afford you anymore.
But that's when you need the therapist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think with sliding scales, then at least you're getting, there's flexibility, and then you can build like a longer term relationship with someone too. So it's nice that you asked about that even in the beginning too. But everyone needs support. Like human beings need support. Like no one goes through life alone. No one goes through life unscathed. Like, and it's not fair to ask family and friends who are also going through their own stuff to like take on the burden of mentally processing for you or with you all the time. Yeah. So it's just necessary to have someone else who's trained and prepared.
Your job sounds fascinating. Can I ask what the difference between a coach and a therapist is? Because in the UK, I think coaching is becoming more of a thing here, but I'm just intrigued as to how you would differentiate them.
So the biggest differentiation to me is when I'm doing coaching, I am doing it in a goal setting with goal setting in mind. So we set really specific achievable goals within whatever our coaching contract is, where if you're doing therapy, it's like ongoing maintenance. So it's like as you go through your day-to-day life and we're going to tackle these obstacles and unpack things from your past and like sort of do this in an ongoing basis, versus if I'm doing coaching, I'm saying, okay, in this 6-month contract, we're going to work on building your sexual confidence, improving your communication with your partner, and I don't know, having a better perspective on your body or whatever. And like every
your attachment style, becoming more secure in yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more like we have our calls and then I give you homework. It's like a little more involved than therapy, where therapy is really like processing with extended support. Coaching is more goal oriented and task oriented. It's like giving you like the more actionable stuff to do.
Amazing. Yeah. I went to see my parents do this. Is all HappyHead related, but because it is interesting. When I went to see my parents the other night, we were talking, and my dad was like, "We just never had this therapy, coaching." He was like, "It just wasn't available to us," and the language of. I don't know, attachment styles or that kind of thing, he would be like, we just had no language for it. I kind of just got on with it, and you dealt with the pain that you were feeling, and you kind of just had to move through it. And he was saying, it was a very interesting conversation, because I was like, well, we're really lucky as a generation to have that now and to process it. And he said to me, don't you feel like you can become a bit obsessed with it, and that maybe it can keep you stuck rather than the sort of, and there's a fine balance, isn't there, between like working on yourself, doing the work you need to do, but also like living in reality and knowing you have to move forward. I think it was just an interesting conversation I had with my dad.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I have a lot of conversations with people about how the divorce rate is higher now than it was 50 years ago. Yeah. And I think it's related to that. I think people are aware, like if I can give a name to somebody who's a narcissist and say your behaviors are narcissistic, and I think that you are a narcissist, then I'm able to identify those behaviors as being destructive to me, and I can leave. Whereas 50 years ago, maybe that's not really how you're processing what's going on. And you're like, I think he's kind of a jerk, but I'm sure it's probably fine. And also I can't get a credit card by myself because I'm a woman. And so might as well stay. It's our like level of awareness affects what we accept in life. And I give
our autonomy.
Our
ability to choose and our autonomy, our level of awareness allows us to say, okay, this is not going to work, I can leave, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so interesting. And like, I could yap about this all day. It's so interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I think people are also more aware of like the fact that divorce doesn't destroy your life afterwards.
Yeah.
In fact, it kind of betters everybody's life. I am the child of 2 divorced parents, so I fully support it because at the time they divorced when I was like 3. And at the time I was like, I didn't know what divorce was. I thought it meant like I couldn't see my dad or anything. I was like, no, you'll see him. This is how we're doing the custody. And I was like upset. And as I grew older though, when I realized my parents were 2 distinct individual human beings with their own likes, wants, all that stuff, I was like, okay, you guys were not right for each other. That totally makes sense. And I was like, I'm glad that you divorced. I'm glad that I have 2 separate parents. And then I also got step siblings and stuff after that. So I love my weird little blended family.
And
if you're thinking about a divorce, do it. Divorce your husband or wife.
We're pro-divorce here. Well, because also, wouldn't you want to grow up with like an example of a healthy relationship or healthy boundaries, or like parents who are like, this relationship doesn't serve me anymore, so I'm going to make a different and better choice. That is a way better, way healthier mindset than watching parents who fucking hate each other like duel it out. For what reason? For what reason? You're teaching your child to accept relationships that are not healthy, and that doesn't make sense either.
And your kid can see when you guys hate each other, because I had friends growing up and they knew that their parents like should get a divorce. Like they sat there like, they fight all the time. It's annoying. I don't even want to be at home right now. So it's like, do you really want your kid to sit there and be like, you can hide it as well as you want, but your kid knows, like, they're there all the time. They know all this stuff is happening.
And what we place our value on now in terms of that shifting. So back when my dad was my age, value was in marriage and in commitment and in like as if the longer you are married, the more value you have. That's how it was seen back then. Like, oh my gosh, they've been married for 40 years. Wow. How do you do it? How have you managed? You know what I mean? There's a lot of, it's sort of lauded, isn't it? The length of a marriage, or it was. And I think that's changing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Nowadays, it's like, what's your relationship with yourself like?
Yeah, right. I'm so glad you've been married for 50 years. Do you also fucking hate yourself, or where are we at with that? Oh my God.
That is part of HappyHead as well, where they kind of force them to partner up, and then like am I remembering correctly that there are even like not marriage stuff, but it seems like these weird little almost marriage ceremony kind of thing.
Happy, which is the second book, it becomes a lot more culty, and they're sort of led by this perfect couple who are called Artemis and Ares. That's not their real names, but they're pitched as these beautiful, ethereal, strong, good-looking, like the archetypal HappyHead version of what a happy couple should look like. And you know, when the trainees meet them, they're like, whoa, they're crazy, but they're also like, whoa, who are these people? And as the book goes on, you start to see the truth beneath the facade. And I think, you know, for me, I don't want to give a spoiler, but the male in the couple is very much how Seb could be, which is if he continued this journey with HappyHead and he finds out the truth about how this guy is actually really feeling. And I just really enjoyed exploring that in terms of like fully trying to be accepted by our systems and our society and being like, look, I did it. And everyone's like, great, you're amazing. But actually inside there's something, you know, like this, I had this thing where you're miserable. So because I've, you know, throughout my life, I can remember moments in my life where I've like done what I was supposed to do. Like do well in my exams or something. Let's use that as an example. And then I remember looking at my exam results and feeling this real, like, I don't feel good because it's almost like it's not giving me what I was promised, which is like eternal happiness or a feeling of contentment or joy. And for me, it's been a journey throughout my life, this of like learning what, external validation lasts so long.
Yeah.
And you can keep trying to top it up and keep trying to reach for it and keep trying to like inhale it almost, like I'll get it from you, I'll get it from that book, or I'll get it from that thing that I'm doing, and keep trying to top it up and top it up. But what I've learned through my life is it depletes. And actually on this sort of mission to keep gaining external validation, it's a very, or from my point of view, very unhealthy cycle, and it doesn't end up giving me what I want. And yeah, actually what I have learned is the things that make me feel peaceful and happy and content. It does come, I have to have a good relationship with myself in order to find the relationships and the things in my life that add to that, to make me feel that way. And I think in HappyHead there's that as well. Seb is succeeding, but he doesn't feel right, and he's trying. Why aren't I happy? They said I would be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you kind of a deep question then. How do you deal with that as an author? Because that's basically our entire job. Is like trying to, like, you try when you're writing the book and editing and everything, you're trying to write the best book for you when you write it. And then when you're editing it, you still have to have your audience in mind. So you have to actually, it's the first, like, especially as a published author now, you have readers. So it's like you have to kind of be in your head and be like, okay, well, I need to make sure that this is meeting expectations, and I still have to make it something I'm proud of. How do you find like balancing that? Because spoiler, I do not do great with that, and still struggle with it. So.
Yeah. Well, I went to drama school and I was an actor for 7 years. So I quit being an actor because I couldn't deal with this stuff in the acting industry. So I was ruled by this sort of tidal up and down of, oh, I got a job, I feel amazing. Oh, the job's gone, I feel terrible. I got a recall, I feel great. Oh, that person said I was good in that play. Oh, that person said I was rubbish in that play. Like, and basing, having a view of myself through someone else's eyes, and that's exhausting. And that is not every actor. I've come to learn that as well. That's me. And again, learning about how I seek my happiness or validation, and it used to be in very, very destructive ways, and that was it for me. It was incredibly destructive, and I just realized I'm going to let life pass me by without enjoying it, because I'm living in these pockets of what felt like a wave of joy, and then it would go, and I'd be like, I need another now, and it was never enough, in the words of Lauren Allred.
I just remember Rebecca Ferguson lip syncing to it. So say it was Rebecca Ferguson.
Sorry, I've done YouTube deep dives about this, and it was sung by a woman called Lauren Allred and Rebecca Ferguson, who I
didn't know that. I thought it was her singing it. Oh, wow. See, okay.
Rebecca Ferguson is amazing, and she is one of the few women in this world that I think is fucking sexy as hell.
Dune.
She is the only reason I liked that movie. Her and Zendaya, both.
Okay.
But like Rebecca Ferguson, I'm sorry, we're getting off topic, but I just need to say this because I love Rebecca Ferguson. If you have not watched Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, it is incredible, and she is the villain in it, and she is amazing. But when she was doing press for Dune 2, she was sitting there in her chair like this. Sad. I'm so sad that people can't see this on the podcast. She just has a toothpick and she's just chilling. Just arm over the back of the chair, toothpick in her mouth, answering questions. Just casual. And I was just like, is this the sexiest anybody has ever looked doing a press junket? Because she just was so confident. And I love Rebecca Ferguson. I really am in love with her.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say. Anyway, you were talking about Never Enough.
She seems to be quite boundaried with, like, in interviews and stuff. It's just so interesting. So, and then when I left the acting industry, I was like, right, I was not happy, and I made this decision to quit, and I retrained as a mental health nurse, and I would have, up until that point in my life, I would have judged that profession as be like, you're not gonna. What are you going to do as a nurse? Like, how are you going to be seen, or how are you going to get, what's that? I would have never thought that I would have judged that. And then when I started my nursing training, I loved it. I found such a sense of joy in it, and it was consistent. And I love working hard, and I think that suits my personality. And I just had this kind of change in my outlook on what is valuable to me. And so when I started writing my book, I had because I'd had such this toxic relationship with the acting industry, I had this desire to go into writing the book without these expectations on myself. And I just wrote the book in a way because I missed being creative, and I really wanted to just be creative. And I started writing the story, and then, people that were reading it were like, you should give it, see if someone will take it. And I thought, yeah, why not? Because I liked what I was writing. And I hadn't, as an actor, ever been able to say, I like what I'm doing in this show, or I always needed someone else to tell me. I always believed everyone else's opinions. And I just felt with HappyHead, I was like, I really feel like this is what I want to say. And I think, so what it's done for me as an author is it's not really about what other people think, because what I'm trying to do is say something. If people don't agree with what I say, that's absolutely fine. That's fine. So I look at it slightly differently now. If someone doesn't like my book, right, I'm like, that's fine. I don't agree with everything either. And so there are people that do agree with what the book's saying, or do find it interesting, or do like the characters. And there are people who don't find it interesting, or think it, don't like the characters. And I'm able to, it's hard, but sometimes it's hard, isn't it? But I am able to go, well, this is my point of view. And,
right.
And so also point of views change. So that was my point of view when I wrote the book, and it is still my point of view. But to just see it as like a pocket of time where I had a point of view and I wanted to write something about it. And I, the noise that can happen around, but like it can be really destructive. And that's when I start to feel very anxious, book sales, TikTok, this kind of thing. It's anxiety inducing because it's out of my control, really. And also, I don't want to try and control that stuff, because that's not why. If I look, if I really like close my eyes, think about why I wrote my book, it was never to like win awards or make loads of money. I mean, it's amazing when these things, as an added, whatever bonus, or that could happen. But because I've learned what I value, I think I'm a bit more rational with it now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like I think I do. I have moments like that where I'm just like, oh, well, like, especially if you're like reading a review or something, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that's fine. It's your opinion. You obviously read the book wrong. And then I move on. Yeah. And it's like, it's things like that I can kind of push off. And I think it's just every once in a while, it happens to everybody, where expectations and stuff like that kind of get to you, and you just have to figure out a way to either push it away or push through it. And yeah, it can be exhausting sometimes, but even just talking about it here with you, I was telling you before we started recording how I was kind of anxious about my fourth book, which we will talk about shortly, because I have another thing I want to talk about first. And just already I kind of feel better about it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? You're right. It is. I have my point of view, and I have the book that I've written, and it's like, if it finds its audience, great. If it doesn't, that sucks, but it's what it is. It's like, I can't control any of that. That is not something that I can control.
And you can't spend your life trying to fulfill other people's expectations of you. And also, you don't really know what those expectations are. And actually, they're not real, and they're not your concern. Like, for me, I've spent a lot of my time understanding that other people's opinions are nothing to do with me. And I like to really think they are, and that I can control them, control other people's opinion. And I can't. And I've learned that through lots of ways. But I cannot. All I have is control over my own point of views, behaviors, actions, whatever that is. And if other people don't agree or don't fall in line with or match what I'm saying or doing, then that's okay. And for me, letting go of all that stuff it's liberating, but it's hard to do.
Yeah. I feel like it comes down to really living in a space where like you're doing things because it fulfills who you authentically are and the message that you want to be sharing. And it'll find, you have to just like trust that it'll find the right people, like you said. This is like the weirdest way to express this, but I heard someone say recently, like, this is terrible, and I do not align with this advice, but just for a second, walk with me. I heard someone say, don't let your boyfriend get in the way of you finding your husband. Which is a terrible thing. And I do not align with that. But my thought was like, you can't let these like little things along the way disrupt what is like the larger, bigger picture of it. And anytime I think about like the people who are the most iconic ever, like legendary, iconic people, they were always disruptors. And like we now, like I think like Marilyn Monroe, like I am positive that half of the world fucking hated her and the other half really loved her. And now we look back on this period of time, this person, and like we can see all of these wonderful things that we really love and appreciate about her. I mean, and there's a lot of bad that comes with that as well. But nobody who is like just trying to fit in with what everyone else is doing is going to like make history or stand out. Like you're not going to stand out, and you're not going to be, you have to be sort of controversial to have something really impactful come through and like that message come through. And I can't imagine what that experience is like. I'm not an author, so I can't imagine what that experience is like to do that in the process of a book too, where you're spending so much time and energy and revising and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like the message that you want to share.
It's very easy to overthink it as well and be like, oh no, this is going to be seen like this by some people. Some people are going to want to, I don't know, they're going to hate me, or they're going to hate what I'm saying. People are going to misconstrue what I'm saying, but that's life. That is life. You can go through life monitoring every interaction you have, thinking oh no, they're not reading me correctly. They're not hearing what I'm saying correctly, or they think the way I speak is bad, or they're judging me. And if we monitor ourselves like that, we just live in a state of fear. And honestly, fear has its uses. It can help you learn about yourself, but also it can be very restrictive. And that voice in you that says, don't do that, don't say that, you can't, you're ultimately you're a bad person, that kind of voice that can creep in for all of us is it wants to pull you down and stop you from being creative and achieving and sharing and being outward looking. And I've had to learn to sustain or face that voice quite a lot in my life of saying, I understand that is a fear of mine, and I would be very scared of some of the outcomes that you're telling me could happen, which are sometimes, catastrophic. And 99% of the times that doesn't happen. But I can either listen to the fear and agree with it and like shrink, or I can say, no, I see you, but this is important to me. I'm writing my book, and just sort of hope that someone either connects with it or entertains someone,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I love HappyHead so much, because that's what Seb is going through too. Like, he's not doing creative work, but he's trying to, like external forces, it's always other people that he is trying to change himself to make happy, and that is what is making him sad, and he can't get out from under that because he's just constantly like, oh well, all of these people, these people are expecting this from me, and I have to meet those expectations.
He's constantly viewing himself through everyone else's eyes, and I think that's why he's exhausted.
That
Honestly,
makes sense.
That's why he's mentally exhausted, because he's like, I don't really know what I think of myself.
Are we allowed to talk about the movie of HappyHead? Is there any movement on it? I know Taron Egerton is producing it.
Yeah, Taron Egerton's producing it. It's happening. There's a script, and that's all I know.
It's a slow process.
Okay. I feel like we all were just very casual about that. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're trying to be casual about it.
Okay, so we can't be too excited yet, so we have to be casual.
Yes, because it's like, it is like, especially with book deals to being turned into movies, things can change like instantly.
Right.
It always starts with like a Zoom call, and then you hear nothing for like months and months and months, maybe even a year or two. Yeah. And then all of a sudden someone will follow up and be like, oh, well, there's a script now. And in order to get like movies,
things can change so quickly, and things are out of people's hands. Everyone has the best intentions, but it can I don't know, like I was reading this thing about Netflix. They're canceling shows that are doing really well, and like the whole, I don't get it, and I just stay out of it. To be quite honest, I'm like, because I don't know, it's money again, I'm sure, but I feel very fortunate that it's being developed, and I honestly just am able to relinquish my whatever about it all, because again, like I can't control it, and I'm just letting it happen. But yeah, it is cool. I'm very grateful that that's happened to the book, and but I have no idea. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get to read the screenplay, or do you just know it exists?
I just know it exists.
Okay. But I mean, it's still cool that someone believes in the story so much that they see it as something that can be adapted. Like that alone is like an honor.
You know, that is an honor. And the way I visualize my scene, so when I write, in my head, each chapter is like a scene from a show. That's how I kind of see it. And so I'm quite visual in that way, I would say. And I write very much in the moment. I don't have I don't know, in my books, I've noticed myself that things happen in real time. And I feel like maybe it's probably quite helpful for someone who's looking for books to adapt, because it's kind of giving you the structure of a scene so I know it's cool. I'm really excited, but again, no idea. We don't know how these things will pan out, but it's cool.
Do you think your acting career kind of also influences the way you write, because you're thinking of it as a scene and being like, okay, well, these are the motivations for each of these characters in each scene?
Yes, and that's...
And is it also a detriment too, because you're like, oh, well, this scene's getting a little long now?
Yeah. But I've only ever written in first person, and I think that is something to do with maybe being an actor, like losing myself in somewhat. That sounds so wanky. There's another British term for you, wanky. Do you know that one?
I don't think so.
I think we say that.
It means like cringe.
Oh, cringe. Okay.
Yeah, so I said losing myself in my character. But I think I really enjoy getting into the mindset of someone that is very different to me. And that's what acting was, right? And I can do it with first person narrative. So that's how that's how the books I've written so far have developed. And so I think there is quite a lot of that in it, in my writing process. Whatever that means. I wish I could say I had one. I honestly don't.
You don't have one at all. So do you just kind of sit down with a plan for the day, or do you just kind of sit down and be like, all right, let's see what happens? Ooh, so wait, this is Alyssa asked the question.
Okay, so when Eric writes his stories, he just writes them, and it's very I feel chaotic. But we've had other people that we've talked to that will do an outline or kind of graph out the story, and then they write. So what is your process like? Are you in the chaotic Eric camp, or are you a little more on the structured side? Where do you fall?
100% in the chaotic Eric
Really?
camp.
Yes.
You got another one. Another one.
Two.
I've tried to write plans, and I panic when I write a plan, because I'm like,
this is so
restrictive. This is so restrictive, and I know I have these goalposts where I'll be like, I want this to happen, and I want the character to have achieved this, or I want that person to have died because of this, or whatever your character arcs are. But I've never. So I have friends who will write a 20,000 word plan, and I'll be like, but that could have been 20,000 words of the actual.
The actual thing. Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I can't do that. I can't do it at all. And also when I'm writing and I'm sort of in my zone, and I'm like, oh wait, this character could do that. That's exciting, and it just happens for me I don't mean that in a arrogant way. It happens for me while I'm writing. The narrative can drive itself while I'm writing. And sometimes when I'm so scared to sit down, I'm like, yeah, but when I sit down and just start writing, things just come. And that is literally how I've done it. Also, I've come up with book titles before I've even known the plot.
Oh, I wish I could do that. I have to ask my editors to come up with book titles sometimes, because I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah, well, yeah.
All that stuff in the world didn't have a title until I was writing the query letter.
Really?
Oh, really?
And I was writing the query letter, and I think I wrote the line, they'll have to figure out what's important to them when all that's left in the world is the love they have for each other. And I was like, oh, maybe that's it.
It's a great title.
It was a great title.
It was a great title.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for the second book's title because that was actually given to me as a goodbye present from my UK editor who's getting a promotion.
Oh.
Because I pitched him the idea and he was like, I just want to say it's been great working for you. And also as a goodbye present, I think this is the title for your book. And I was like, perfect. Thank you. Take all the stress away.
That's so funny. I haven't even thought about naming a book. That would stress me out so much. I would never get through that process.
One, I gave them 2 options and they chose the first one. It was very easy. I was like, okay, thanks, good.
God,
who knows if that will be the actual title.
That would stress me so much because people do unfortunately judge books by their cover, and the title is a part of that. And now I'm going to be stressed about that all day. I feel like there are books, like there's a book that I saw on my Kindle, and it was like a thriller, and it was like, this is recommended for you, and it was called like The Perfect Boyfriend, and I was like, well, I can't read that. Surely I can't read that. That sounds, I don't know about all that.
But you know that he's not going to be perfect.
Right. And like
it's telling you everything you need to know in the title.
The cover is like a dress shirt with a tie and like a splatter of blood on it. And I was like,
of course.
No, come on. You know?
I don't know what you're talking about. That's selling the book for me. I bet you it's a bestseller, isn't it?
It sounded like a book you buy at the airport, you know?
Yeah. Those are bestsellers, Alyssa. That's a good thing.
They're the ones that
you can only get bestsellers in airports.
I've heard that. It's like
my book will never be in an airport.
It's like Michelle Obama's biography and
and The Perfect Boyfriend.
And The Perfect Boyfriend, exactly.
And some girl goes, "Oh, I know about Michelle Obama. I'm going to read about The Perfect Boyfriend."
Exactly.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about then what is next for Josh, because I actually your next book's title is incredible. So, and it's a great pitch too. So tell us all about it.
Okay, so my next book is called Trauma Land, and
great title.
When we were speaking earlier about money and systems making money out of people's pain, that is basically what inspired me to write this book. So basically, I got a bit frustrated that systems can try and make money out of pain and emotional pain, but also I feel like on stuff like Instagram, there's this leaning towards commodifying mental health and using diagnoses to attach to your name in order to have relevance or in order to be sellable, really. And it's a tricky conversation, but I feel like it does happen. And sometimes you can see people talking about certain diagnoses, and yeah, it's great to share experiences about what it's like to struggle. I think that's an amazing part of what social media can offer. But also, if you're doing it to promote your underwear range, then I'm confused as to where that leads, and also there's an undermining of certain mental health diagnoses that can happen on social media. I've seen it. It scares me when I see people like, oh, kooky, my depression, and I find it, like peace sign, bipolar disorder, and what I struggle with, like those I've seen reels that have been liked hundreds of thousands of times of people sort of in that rhetoric, and is really damaging. I think it is incredibly worrying that we are playing with very serious mental health conditions like that, and actually a lot of people who are talking on the internet about them aren't qualified to, and it scares me. And also things like pride. So I am part of the gay community, and for a long time the pain of being gay was strictly the LGBTQ plus communities, and now you see the pride flag selling bars of soap in Superdrug, and I'm like, do you want to appropriate the pain as well, or is it just you want to sell the soap?
No, not that. We don't want that.
No, we don't want that bit. And you're not in pain anymore anyway, are you? Aren't you really liberated? And aren't you all very self-actualized? And I just got angry with the idea of people selling pain. And so I came up with this idea that Trauma Land, so it follows a 17-year-old called Eli. And Eli has been in a car crash, and the accident basically gave him 2 months memory loss, and he has become emotionally stunted since the crash. So he's trying to sort of feel again and remember what happened with his therapist. And he starts doing a little side project where he starts like doing immoral acts to try and feel guilt, and he starts doing dangerous things to feel fear. And it ends up with him stealing someone's mobile phone, which leads him to this underground club called Traumaland. And in Traumaland, you go into this vault, and there are doors everywhere, and you have to pay to go in, and it's this new experience that's being created of you go in and you put on like a headset, and it's sort of a VR experience where you experience a traumatic episode, and it's for thrill seekers or people who are feeling emotionally numb, who are bored and feel like they're stuck on a computer all day and they want to feel again. And you can go in and you watch as if you're a character and you're experiencing a traumatic episode, and he watches a few of them, and then he puts on a headset and he sees himself, and he starts to realize that he wasn't in a car crash and that something happened to him. And I don't want to say too much because I'm going to ruin things.
This is crazy.
That's it. It's such a good idea.
It's such a good idea.
You told me, I think you were just, I'm not sure if you were writing it when we met. I think you were just like started or pitched it.
I just started.
And I was just like, you have to write that one. It's so good.
So that's about to be announced. Well, no, actually, when this podcast comes out, it will have been announced in the UK. So
because you're announcing on Halloween, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's cool. And I think, it's leaning into the horror genre a bit more, which is something that I am interested in, but also just I feel like this whole social media plus trauma plus I know what I'm talking about plus let me sell something thing is I just feel like it's crazy and scary. And also when we were younger, we didn't have, well, I don't know how old you all are actually, but when I was younger, I didn't have a mobile phone. So I was not sat there looking at other people telling me what it's like to feel. And I was able to experience it in real time. And yes, I know that social media allows for people to learn, and some of it's very useful in terms of people learning about what's going on with them, and they feel like they can reach out, and I'm sure it's saved people's lives. But there's also this negative side of it that's like, I'm actually have no idea what I'm talking about, and what I really want to do is sell my hair product. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Anytime I see TikTok when it says this is paid for getting a commission, I immediately will be like, oh, I'm not sure if I believe this.
Yeah. Well, it's even like, I think have you heard of orthorexia before? It's it's like an obsession with health. And so it's interesting because I remember like years ago, I was vegan for a little while. And while I feel like that's where I saw this like orthorexia stuff happening for the first time, where it's like, you're afraid of all oils, you're afraid of nuts, you're afraid of salt. And you're like, just things that you're allowed to eat and are normal to eat and are healthy to eat in many circumstances, unless you're like allergic or whatever. And it's crazy because it's like you're taking something that's meant to be good. It's meant to be like, we're going to make you the healthiest that you can be. And then you're creating a fear of everything else, and you've overcorrected. And now we're like in this crazy space. And you see that a lot with mental health when people talk about like, actually using the example of a narcissist, I feel like is a good example. Everyone's a narcissist. Like everyone is bipolar. Like, and there's these people who are like Instagram psychologists, and they think that they can just sort of like throw out these diagnoses at people, and it's just so bad. It's just so bad.
It's really dangerous as well, because you start going, oh yeah, that person in my life is that, and actually it's not true.
And it's not true.
You stop being able to look, actually you stop looking at yourself. I feel like that's what you stop doing. You stop looking at everyone else, and rather than going, can I look at my own behavior? Can I look at why I'm doing things? And when you start to do that and you look at your own behavior and you realize where it's coming from, typically a place of pain or fear, I found for me, then you start to become empathetic towards other people's behaviors, and you actually know they're not whatever, they're struggling with something, or that, like in the same way I would be if I acted like that. And it doesn't allow for that. It goes, here is this person is this, and how to spot a psychopath or whatever. And I just find it quite
for damaging. A period of time, my TikTok was so sure that I was autistic. Like I got every TikTok that I had was telling me that it was like unknown signs that you have adult autism, and I'm like, relax, chill out, okay? I
love how they have to add adult autism. Like, you didn't just have it the whole time, by the way.
Right.
You got it as an adult.
It's only recent. And it's also like, there'll be like signs that your ADHD diagnosis is actually autism. Like, I have ADHD and that's a relatively new diagnosis. And I was like, hold on a second, please stop, because I can't. It felt like my world is spinning around me. And I'm like, everyone chill out. It was too much.
I love how all three of us are on here with ADHD, just making our jobs happen.
Oh my God.
I feel like it's scary to pathologize it.
It is.
Pathologize everything. I feel like we start to nitpick and totally just sort of pull apart personality and say, well, you're crazy because, or you can't settle because of this, or you have this quirk because of this. And yeah, it can be really helpful for people to have diagnoses. And yeah, I do have ADHD as well. And the diagnosis, well, it's actually helped the people in my life a lot more than it sort of allowed people to go, oh, that's happening. But but for me, it's like, I actually found it quite difficult with the diagnosis because I was like, well, isn't that just who I am? And do I need to start limiting when I get overexcited? Do I need to start limiting it, or do I need to start limiting how much I talk? Probably.
No.
Not here, you don't.
We're a trio of yappers. You know what? It's like the difference between self-awareness and like actually, like the example I use all the time is if you are a person where you're like, you tell everyone, oh, it starts at 6, I'll be there at 6:10, I'm always 10 minutes late. It's like, it doesn't make you less late because you're telling me that you are chronically late to things, and it doesn't make it less rude. Like, you are still 10 minutes late, even though you told me that you're someone who's always late. So it's like being aware of like having ADHD doesn't mean that that's like the reason why. Like, that doesn't mean that you don't have to be like mindful of time and on top of things when you have to be. Like, it's, I don't know, that always drives me a little bit crazy.
Totally. And also with, diagnosing, which I do, it's probably a bigger conversation, but diagnosing can have its benefits in terms of treatment pathways. So it makes people go, oh, so if I have that, then I should be doing this, this, and this. And especially working as a mental health ward as a mental health nurse on wards, when a diagnosis is given to a young person, they'll Google it and they'll be like, oh, I should be doing this and this. And it can inform and start behaviors that actually they weren't doing before that aren't healthy. And I find that really difficult because it eradicates nuance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It absolutely does. And I think you're right. It like takes away people's personalities.
Yeah. Let's write a book about people's personalities being taken away.
I would read it.
It'd be like, I mean, it sounds like you're already picking out your new ideas.
Or like you have to compete for the best personalities, and you get to be that personality for a day.
Oh my God.
Only for a day? You can't make it your whole personality for life?
Just a day.
Oh. What personality would you want if you could trade for a day?
Yeah.
Do you mean like a famous person?
Just in general. Just
a personality type.
Well, I'm getting there actually. Actually, do you know what? This could be the message of the book. You're like, I'm getting to a place where I'm like feeling calmness in my life and peace and I would have probably said that in the past, like someone who feels
That's nice. I love that.
I would want to be a himbo, like a total himbo, just like,
oh, really?
Optimistic, so outgoing, lovable, just smooth-brained himbo. Like, that would be that's what I want for a day. I just want to see what that's like.
That's so funny.
Is that what a Ken is? A himbo?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Ken. Yeah, like a bimbo.
No, because I feel like he got too internalizing it in the movie. I think he was realizing too quickly that he was...
Okay.
He was always in competition. I would want to be not even Alan, because Alan would be kind of he was kind of like, oh, I'm concerned about Ken. No, I just want to be like the smooth-brained himbo who just
I love it.
Loves everybody, only sees the good in people. There is no bad in the world. There's rose-colored glasses just for one day.
Just for one day.
Because you know what? That's a great day for just the one day.
Yeah.
And you know what? I would love that to be election day.
Yeah.
That just wipe my brain, just make it
smooth brain, no ridges.
Happy.
I would love that.
You guys have got that coming up. Is it 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, so when this is out, it will be done.
Well, it's less than 2 weeks away, but then there's the entire month of November where they're counting mail-in ballots and not deciding who it is. And it's going to be terrible. It's going to be awful. And then, of course, we have to wait until January 6th when whoever actually becomes president becomes officially president, because who knows, there could be an uprising. It's great.
Yeah.
America could all fall apart in 2 weeks
we're in our
3
final
months.
seasons of this show.
Yeah. See, this is why I just I just have to make a joke about it, because if I don't, I stress. And I already don't know what I'm going to be doing on election day, because I'm signing up to drive people to the polls, like people who can't get around, like older people.
Oh, that's nice.
So I'm hoping that will kind of distract me, even though it's doing poll work all day. So I'm waiting to see if I get called for that. And then if I don't, I think I'm just going to put my phone somewhere and hide my computer and watch movies.
Do you ever get
all day
the desire to just drop your phone and walk away from it and just
100%. If I could take my phone and throw it into the woods and never see it ever again, I feel like producer Matt knows this probably better than anyone. If I could isolate myself so that like almost no one ever talked to me ever again, I think I would do it for like a period of time.
Love that.
Like
the thing is,
what's that based in?
So my job is very social, and I do a lot of stuff on social media. And so like I constantly have, I have 157 unread text messages at this time. And I don't even know what my DMs are like. I have 15 in my notifications that are unread, but there are more that like after a while, the notification like just sort of disappears. So it's like constant. And that's not my emails. And I have 2 different email accounts. Like it's too much. I need to be less reachable. I need to be unreachable for a period of time. So if I could trade personalities with anyone for one day, it would be someone who has no guilt about being unreachable for a day. Because even on days where like
That's so interesting that you don't say it will be someone who's unreachable for the day. It's someone who would also experience no guilt for doing that. So you must feel like it's ingrained in you now that you feel guilty if people can't reach you.
100%.
But actually, it's your God-given right to be able to be unreachable however long you want.
That's true.
I know.
We live in this age now because of mobile phones where anxiety is perpetuated and spiraled when we don't hear from people. And we're like, like you can spiral and be like, are they okay? Has something happened? Have I done something?
Are they mad at me?
Or is it about me? And whereas back in the day, my parents were not like they were just walking around the streets like living their life, and like if something happens, they're like meet it in real time. Whereas we are like anticipating bad stuff.
We need to devolve. We need to devolve.
Yeah, like go from Charizard back down to Chameleon. Is that what they call? I don't know. Sorry, I got too excited. Pokemon.
I'm trying to think. Charmander.
Go full Charmander.
Yeah.
That's two rungs down.
I want to devolve. I want everyone to only be able to reach me like through a house phone or mail or physically showing up to my house. I'm not going to give my address to anyone, so no one's coming over, and it'll be great. And I feel like that because in reality, it always drives me a little crazy where like I feel like to maintain friendships, you have to be so much more present than you used to have to be for some people. When in reality, like 30 years ago, you saw them when you saw them, or you called them on their house phone. And like, you know,
I used to love sitting up late at night on my mum and dad's house phone, like calling someone, and like you'd just get that conversation, and it wouldn't be like, okay, we'll text again now after the phone call, because you just have these continuous conversations with people. We're
always talking to somebody. And sometimes I don't want to talk to anybody anymore. No. It's like, we reach our limits.
But that's what it is for me. It's not even like I enjoy my time alone.
Oh, same.
Like I like hanging out with people, but I need me time. I need to just be alone. And I don't think there should be anything wrong with that. I like being able to sit in a room quiet by myself and do whatever I'm going to do, like write, read, play a video game, just by myself. Just
and not feel guilty for it. Not feel guilty. That's exactly what you just said. Not feeling guilty for being disconnected. Wow, we get back to the same place.
Yeah. I love it.
It's because we're people pleasers. We're prioritizing other people's emotions over our own.
It'll be
I
what
love it when we
kills
have
me.
episodes that are just therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Processing together.
I feel like I bring that.
Do you bring that energy to all of the conversations you have?
Not like
it's the mental health nurse education. You're helping us. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, I just find it fascinating that human interaction is a fascinating thing, isn't it? And
it
especially all the way it's changed.
Yeah.
Do you guys watch Black Mirror?
I
stopped because it's too depressing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I watch some, but if I watch too much, it makes me very upset.
Really?
Yeah. It was for me. It was
heavy.
the one with the guy who could replay things with his eye. It records everything, and then you can rewatch it.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching him like he's in the beginning, like the first scene. He's rewinding a job interview and seeing every mistake he made, and I was like, "That's what I would do." I would every night before bed, I would go back and replay every conversation that I would have with a person and see all of the mistakes I made. And it just drove me insane. I was like, I can't do this.
If I remember rightly, in that episode, some people are opting to have it removed, and they meet a woman at a dinner that's had it removed, and they're all like fascinated by her, and she has this sort of sense of freedom about her. And it's a bit like mobile phones, that, isn't it? Like, I feel like if I didn't have WhatsApp or I didn't have messaging, I wouldn't overthink communication, because you can just reread it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be like, oh, they said that and they meant that, and I said that, and I hope they didn't read it like that. And you can become obsessed.
Yeah, 100%. Having the access to everything like that would drive me nuts.
Oh,
God,
same.
I feel like I need to take a walk.
Well, me too.
That's our show.
I need to
Before we let you go, Josh.
I need to touch some grass.
Yeah. Before we let you go, what are you reading now? I forgot to warn you about this question that it was coming. I'm
reading a book called Butter.
Ooh, okay.
It's an adaptation of a Japanese book by Asako Yuzuki. And it's pitched as the cult new Japanese best-selling novel, and it's about a woman who is a reporter who's investigating a female serial killer. And I'm just really enjoying it. And recently I read one called Big Swiss. Did you hear of that? I really recommend Big Swiss. It's a great book. That is about, oh my God, let me tell you what that's about. So that is about a woman who is a typist, and she gets employed by a therapist to type up his sessions. She can only hear the audios, and she ends up becoming obsessed with one of his clients.
Okay.
So she ends up like sort of stalking one of his clients.
This is Big Swiss.
I love that.
Yeah, so she knows what's going on in Big Swiss's head. So the woman that she becomes obsessed with is called Big Swiss. So she's hearing her therapy sessions and then going and interacting with her in real life.
Okay. I just put them both on my Goodreads.
Yeah, I did too.
Wow, those are great finds.
Yes, and for the YA market, I am here to, well, obviously Eric's books are amazing, and I've just heard the pitch that you told me about your next one. Are we allowed to talk about your next one?
Not yet. Sadly, we're still fixing some issues, so I don't know really how much I'm allowed to say.
Well, I love your books, and I cannot wait to read it. But also Kathleen Glasgow's new book, which is called The Glass Girl, which is about alcoholism in teenagers, really. And I just found it really, really moving. And I relate a lot. I've been sober for a while, and I just think it's an incredible topic. You know, Kathleen writes very issue-led books, and I think what she does for the YA book world is incredible, actually. So I really advise that one.
Yeah, she manages to write these issue books that aren't glorifying at all, that's
brilliant.
I think they're genuinely probably helpful for kids who might be struggling with the issues too, which is incredible.
When I was working on mental health wards, I would see Girl in Pieces everywhere. All the kids were reading it, and I'd be like, "What's that book about?" And they'd be like, "It's about self-harm." And I thought, "Oh no, what if it's glamorizing? What if it's glorifying?" And then I read it, and I was like, "This, no wonder they're reading this. This is so deeply helpful for someone who's struggling with this stuff." And I think, and you're right, Eric. There's this fine balance. So, because we live in a world now, like TV, like Netflix, they're starting to glamorize and glorify serial killers. Like every show that's about a serial killer, they're all taking their tops off and murdering people with their abs out. And
right.
This is crazy. Like that we're now accepting that it's sexy to be a serial killer.
Right. Casting Evan Peters as Ted Bundy was a diabolical move. Well, diabolical. Because we love Evan Peters in this household.
Yeah. He's amazing. But I just find that like it's very easy to start glamorizing, sexualizing things that are like, it's not okay to do that.
It's not sexy to murder.
It's absolutely not sexy to murder.
I don't know what
that shouldn't be that like shocking of an opinion, and apparently it is.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of, they lean into it because people go, ooh, you know, it's like taboo or whatever. And actually what it really starts doing is warping people's visions of what an actual serial killer is, you know? And I don't know how I got there. But sorry.
That's
you got there by talking about
that's
books.
The ADHD in us.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
I wonder if people listen to this podcast and they just like feel like they've gone down a loop slide. I
don't think that anyone who listens to this podcast is expecting a linear conversation at this point, especially. Never. There's no way that they're like, and we're going to talk about the book and it'll be over in a quick, tight 40 minutes. And no one thinks that.
I don't think anybody expects that from us.
Okay. Certainly not.
Chaos is the brand here, so it works.
Exactly.
I'm glad I could answer.
Well, Josh.
Yes. You're perfect.
Thank you for
perfect
coming
addition
on
today.
Guys, it's been such a pleasure. You've both been so
This is a great talk.
And fascinating. It's been lovely to meet you both properly.
The one question I forgot to ask, do you have a US release yet for Dead Happy?
Yeah, that's happening in the first quarter of next year.
Goodness,
good. So it's not going to be, because I know it was like, it's been 2 years, I think, since HappyHead came out in the UK. So at least in the US, you don't have, you can, if you're listening to this now, the book is available, HappyHead. You can go to a bookstore and buy it right now. Yeah. And you don't have to wait as long for the sequel.
You don't. I think it's 6 months till the sequel.
Because I will warn, there is a cliffhanger, which, how dare you?
Yeah. People do get annoyed about that. But hey, it wasn't my idea.
Listen.
Well, actually. Well, I wanted to write both books as one book, and they said it was too long, so we split it.
Well, I mean, that is true.
And so, at the end of the day, to the people who read the first one and are mad about the cliffhanger, you're welcome, because it could have been one really long book.
Yeah, it would have been almost 1,000 pages.
Nobody wants to carry that in their bag.
When she asks me how far we can take it, I tell her we can take it across the entire universe. You are my universe, not just a planet.
And now for our outro. Wow, what a great episode.
What a great episode. No, really,
it feels weird saying that because it's like, we literally just finished it. It's like, yeah, we're just going to sit here and talk about how great the episode that you all just listened to us talk about. And you were there. You know how great it was.
You were there. You know, it was awesome. We love Josh. I fear I've fallen in love with another gay man. What are we going to do?
It's the Mancunian accent.
Seriously.
Warm. It's inviting, you know?
The accent is good. He also gives me Andrew Garfield vibes a little bit.
Oh, well.
I think the combination of the accent and he looks kind of like
video.
Him. And the chicken video? Oh my God, the chicken shop video.
Which I haven't even seen. I've only seen memes of the chicken video. So.
I've seen clips of it and I fear I cannot handle the whole thing.
I feel like producer Matt's probably like watching us do this and be like, I said short intro and outro. Short. Stop going on tangents.
I know.
So Alyssa,
okay.
What are you reading?
Okay, you'll be excited because I'm reading Dark Harvest and I love it. Yes. It is so like atmospheric.
Yeah.
And like it's just vibes. It's all vibes. It's so cool. And that was not what I was expecting, but I'm loving it. And I'm also listening to an audiobook called We Used to Live Here, which it's a horror book. And a lot of people we're like really talking it up. And I feel like I have like 2 hours left of the audiobook and it only just now started to get scary. Like I was really struggling through the beginning, but maybe the person who was reading it was like not totally my style, but I'm enjoying it. I'm excited to get to the end. I don't remember if I talked about this the last episode, but I also listened to an audiobook called You Shouldn't Have Come Here when I was driving back and forth to Matt's house for his birthday. And was it that one? I believe, no, it wasn't that one. Wait, I'll find what that other one was because it was so scary. I was in the car listening to this book and I was like, I
want to listen to this.
I was scared, like walking like from my car to Matt's house and it was like dark. I was a little frightened. But let me just make sure that that's what it was called. No, it was Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about it.
It's fucking scary. I was scared. Yeah. Those are all the things that I have just read and am currently reading. What about you? What are you reading right now?
I'm so happy you're reading my recommendation because I think I'm reading your recommendation. You read recently Last House on Needless Street, right?
I loved that book.
That is what I am reading. I am somewhere between loving it and hating it. It's like, it's very frustrating because so much of it is trying to figure out what the fuck is even going on.
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah.
And it's like every time I think I have it figured out, I don't. And then it's just, it's like, it's genuinely like, I get so frustrated because I don't know what's going on, but I have to keep reading because I'm like, I'm going to find out eventually. And I just need to be satisfied at this point. And then I think I'm going to love it.
Yeah,
but it's just right now I'm so mad. I'm like, come on, let's get some more clues down.
Stick with it. Once you get to the end, I think, and you like see what's actually the full picture of what's going on, I think you'll be like, holy fuck, and want to like reread it.
I'm almost there because it's like finally something new, a new twist has come on, and I'm like 200 and some odd pages in. So
okay, yeah. Oh God, I'm so glad you're reading that book.
Yeah.
Look at us taking each other's recommendations.
Right?
I love it. Well, thank you all for listening to this episode. It was a long one, so we don't want to be yapping for too much longer. Make sure you're following YAOK Podcast on Instagram.
Tell us what you're reading for spooky season.
Yes, DM us what you're reading for spooky season. And is Halloween...
Even though, it'll be after Halloween when this episode comes out, but I still want to know. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, let's keep it going.
It's an election year. It's always horror all the way through. Like, let's do it.
Oh, Jesus God. Go and vote, read spooky books, and tell us about them. Follow us on Instagram. And thank you for listening.
Max Bankman, I'm the new doctor.
Welcome aboard the Odyssey.
ABC Thursdays.
This ship is heaven. We're tending to our passengers' dreams. I'm in.
From 911 executive producer Ryan Murphy comes a splashy new drama on a luxury cruise ship with Joshua Jackson and Don Johnson.
It's your job to keep everyone alive.
She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're going to be okay.
Dr. Odyssey. Thursdays, 9/8 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.